The beautiful game has a really lovely message, quite a few lovely messages actually, but the film itself, for me, as somebody who really does not like football, I didn't care for it. I went into it with an open mind. There are plenty of sports-based films that I actually do enjoy, so it had the potential for me to like it, but I just found it to be rather boring, and most of the characters were not that interesting. This was released this year in 2024. It's directed by Thea Sharrock, written by Frank Cottrell-Boyce, and it stars Bill Nighy as Mal. And this is about the Homeless World Cup, where homeless individuals come together to play football in this World Cup, obviously raising awareness for homelessness and providing support. And that in itself is a brilliant idea. Though I will say it does seem like this is a very expensive event to put together. And I feel like, is the awareness raised going to match the amount of money they're going to raise? Are they spending more than they're getting in, is what I'm trying to say. I feel like I would have preferred it if this was based purely in the UK, which it isn't. And I would have preferred it from a personal perspective if it were different UK-based teams, cities around the UK, competing and then ultimately coming together to the UK. So it wouldn't be the World Cup, but it would be UK-based. Maybe I'm the only person who thinks that. I have no idea. I haven't read any reviews. But the World Cup aspect didn't appeal to me. I get that it's highlighting that homelessness affects people worldwide, but I just would have preferred this if this was a British film and it was set in the UK, or set in, even if it was just England, I wouldn't mind, but certainly spreading it out to the rest of the UK would have been pretty great. So for me, I think that would have been better. It would have had a nicer feel to it, and we look after our own. So I think it would have really helped us reinforce the problem in the UK that we have with homelessness, whereas if you're showing it on a worldwide scale, that's quite distant from us. And if they're not competing when they're playing in the World Cup, if they're not competing in the UK, that's also distant from us. And I feel like it would have been more impactful if it was about different pockets of homelessness in different cities in the UK. And I think that that's something that would have been more moving. And maybe they were trying to get an international audience. I don't know if they've succeeded with that or not. But from my perspective, I think they could have done a better job of making it more moving and emotional and meaningful if they made it on a smaller scale. Because then it would have been closer to home and easier to feel those emotions. We do have a bunch of guys going off to represent England, but it never really felt emotional once it got going. And that's not to say there aren't small moments of being emotional, but it just seemed to gloss over the seriousness of homelessness. At the beginning, I really felt that, but after maybe 15, 20 minutes, the homelessness aspect really took a back seat. And again, I feel like they could have done a much better job of that, of actually showing, I don't want to say showing locations where people are homeless in the UK, but again, by removing it from those locations, from the areas where people are potentially in the worst possible situation ever. I personally feel like homelessness, it's my biggest fear. Well, failure is my biggest fear, but homelessness definitely is up there. And I imagine it's a lot of people's biggest fears because it seems like an absolutely horrendous, potentially life-threatening situation. And they just seem to kind of forget about that once the narrative gets underway and it just becomes about football. A little bit about the characters and their situations, but mostly it's just about the football. And I don't care about football. So I actually think they could have done so much more with it. They could have done such a better job with it. And yes, it does raise awareness, but not enough. I feel like they're glossing over important things, and I don't think they did a good job with it. If you're looking for a film about football, absolutely give it a go. There's a lot of it, and I think you'll enjoy that part of it. But it could have been significantly better, significantly more moving, significantly more powerful, and instead we basically got a film about football with some interesting characters, but even then the characters took a backseat, and it was very much just about this game. So the balance isn't great. The pacing isn't too bad. We get to the point really quickly, which I actually have an issue with because I feel like we could have really learned a little bit more of the backgrounds of some of the players. Yes, as the film develops, we do learn a little bit, but it's not very emotional because as soon as we start to dig at something, we're back to just football. And those scenes are understandably quite high energy and fast paced. And there's a lot of joy and happiness as they're playing for their team and supporting each other. And that all works really well. But again, I don't think they got the balance right. Do I recommend it? Only if you're a very big football fan. I can't fault the film for trying to raise awareness for homelessness, but I think they went about it in a lot of wrong ways. The performances are good, the characters are generally well written, but I don't think we got enough out of most of them. And the football aspect is definitely there, but the homelessness, the emotions, the challenges, things that could really have an emotional impact, I just don't think they did very well at all. So at the end of the day, I can't say it's a terrible film because if anybody watches it and it makes them think about homelessness, even just a little bit, and ideally, if anybody can do anything to support homelessness, I know a lot of people do, then I can't fault it for that. But I think they could have been even better. They could have done even more. As a narrative, I don't think they hit the mark. And unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy it because of that.